Hello, folks. I want to take a few minutes to give you a little briefing on the first big assignment you'll have for your improved customer experience or your ICE project. And you're going to be putting together the first draft, if you will, of your ICE presentation. There will be a total of 2 drafts, this being the first, then the second one in a few weeks, and then your final presentation, which will be in week 10 of the course. So just wanted to take you through a couple of quick things here and help you get this set up. So let's get on to the next slide. So just to recap a little bit, remember the assignment. So this is all about opportunity recognition. You're employed by a major grocery retailer, and corporate wants to improve the Net Promoter Score. So hopefully you've gone out and looked around and figured out what the Net Promoter Score is, and you have an idea what that means. And your boss has asked you to take the lead on this and to go out to their flagship store and see if you can improve the customer experience. And hopefully you've all done, well, you better have, all done your field work on that. You've submitted a couple of your ideas. Your classmates have had a chance to comment on them. And hopefully now you've sort of narrowed down to something you're going to want to do. And so we've done that in the past. So you should be in good shape with that. So this is going to talk about the next steps. And but I just wanted to sort of set things up and remind us all of where we've been. So let's get on with the next slide. Okay, so remember you're going to do a voiceover PowerPoint, and I gave you instructions on how to do this both in MS PowerPoint and also gave you directions on how to do it in Google Slides, if that's what you want to use. Either of those are fine with me. It doesn't really matter. So let's talk about this a little more detail. So the final presentation should be about 10 minutes in length. As a matter of fact, it should be no longer than 10 minutes. So 10 minutes, no longer than 10. So you're going to have to pace yourself on this. So you're using a rule of thumb of a minute a slide, maybe a little bit longer per slide than a minute. You should have somewhere between 7 to 10 slides in total. And I want you to go back and, if you'd like to, review, meaning rewatch, the True Fit Jeans video. That was only, I think, 2 some odd minutes long, and boy, that was one of the greatest presentations I've ever seen, and that's why I include it, because it goes through all of the key points very quickly, very efficiently, and very effectively. So I don't expect you to be at that point that they were. They spent a year or so working on that, but it's a great example of how efficient and effective a presentation can be. And I also want you to think about death by PowerPoint again, some of the do's and don'ts of doing a PowerPoint presentation. Mistakes that we all make, and I continue to make some of them. So I suggest that with this sort of backdrop in hand, you focus on putting together an outline of your talk. So figure out what are the key points you want to make. And typically I like to think about 1 key point per slide. What's the one takeaway you want a person to keep from this particular slides? And think about the business model canvas. We talked about this before, and I think the business model canvas, not all of the things in the business model canvas that I shared with you are applicable to this project, but a vast number of them are, and you can use that as sort of a way of structuring your talk if you like. That's a suggestion, it's not a request, but it does make for sort of a nice overall flow. I also want you to think through what are the key assumptions you still have going on in your presentation or in your work, in your ICE project. What things don't you know? What things do you still need to chase down? So identify these in your draft. Say, hey, look, I'm still chasing this down. I don't know what's going to happen. And take it from there. Oh, let me say one other quick point about doing these voice over PowerPoint pitches. Take your time, don't rush, Figure out what the key points are you want to say for each slide and take it one slide at a time. And if you're the kind of person that likes to practice things, take a short two slide talk and just try to work on that at first. So you kind of get comfortable with how everything works and you're not fumbling over the controls or something else. So that's often a good way of getting started. And I find it, when I do it that way, to be less frustrating. But once you sort of understand how things flow and ebb and flow in these types of things, what the different controls do, then you can dive right into your talk. Don't worry about stumbling on your words. You can tell I don't. Just keep on going. It's a kind of a conversation we're having, just like you were doing it live in class. I don't edit any of these slides that I do for you guys. I don't expect you to go through in some voice editor and edit out the uhs and the does and the pauses and the mispronunciations of words and stuff. It happens to all of us. Don't worry about it. So think about the things on this slide. They're important. 10 minutes should be the total length. I don't expect this to be 10 minutes. It could be much shorter because you don't have a lot of the content. So this could be 5 minutes long. It's up to you on however it turns out. So I wouldn't worry about that. But the final one should be 10 minutes and not a second longer. And I will hold you to that. So be warned. All right, let's get on to the next slide. Okay, so now in addition to the business model canvas, BMC, make sure you include your field observations. That should be an R there, I guess, your field observations. And mention what you did there, because that's an important element and aspect of this project. I went out to the field, I observed for an hour and a half, I talked to a dozen customers, whatever you did, make sure you bring that up, because that's the foundation for your project here. Also talk about the things you considered and the things you sort of eliminated. I had a preliminary list of these 5 projects. I talked to my fellow classmates. We got some great feedback. I reduced it down to the final 2. Then I did some additional research, and I found that this is a big problem throughout our stores, chains, or however you want to characterize it. But talk about how you arrived there, what you considered, and how you arrived at your final one that you picked. Also, identify in this draft what are the still open big key questions and what are the unknowns. What things still need to be fixed, or I shouldn't say fixed, but what things do you still need to do in order to determine the key elements of all of this. Also, think through what are the next steps. So I think that's always a good thing to say, hey, look, here's the next 3 things or 4 things I'm going to be concentrating on between now and 2 or 3 weeks when we have our next midterm report due. I shouldn't say midterm, your draft number 2. All right, so I think that's just some context I'm trying to give you to get you ready for making this presentation. So your draft will be due on or before February 10th at 11:55 p.m. and you submit it via Moodle, just like we do everything else. And I will make comments in the notes section of usually the first slide is where I put my comments in. So you'll have those captured and they'll be available there for you when I return it to you. Remember, it's a draft. Don't stress out over it. And quite frankly, just to let you guys know, this is the first time I'm trying this with a class where we're doing Voiceover Powerpoint. And there's lots of different systems available for this. This is one that I think is the easiest to use and do, and it's all in your control. You really don't need to rely on any web-based systems or anything else going on. So it's all captured in your file and you send me the file and it works great. So hopefully you guys don't have a lot of trouble. If you do, again, feel free to post to the general class forum and I will answer those as soon as I can. But hopefully it will all go smoothly and I appreciate your patience in doing this and maybe we'll learn that it's wonderful and I'll do it again next year, or maybe we'll learn that it's a real disaster and I won't do it again. But I want to provide you guys, my motivation for doing this is to provide you guys with the richest environment that you can utilize to make your presentation in this online class. It's one of the challenges you have in these online courses, quite frankly, is how do we do some of the things that normally happen in class. I can just say, hey, get up and present your pitch in class, and everyone knows how to do that. Well, now it's online, and we got to do it a little differently. So here we go, let it rip, and we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to seeing them all. So thanks again, and if there's any questions or comments, please post them to the forum, and I look forward to receiving all of these and providing you with some feedback. Hope all of this was helpful. Have a great week. Thank you.